For my discovery project, I will be recreating the Olmec style mask using modern day mediums such as this Crayola air dry clay. First of all, I am studying to see how they were able to carve this mask out using this new softer medium to see how this might have been recreated in our times. So the first thing I did was I had to build up the what I was going to relieve. So instead of being handed that jade that they carved it out of before, I had to start by building this up and making it somewhat, the slab that they had before. So I started with the eyes and the mouth. I started kind of indenting those with my hands, and then I built onto the nose and added those out slowly. It was a lot of adding and taking away to try to get the same effect that it had. I felt my piece was a little flat when I first started, so I continued to add that clay and smooth it out and make sure that it kind of kept those features that the Olmec used in there. The attributes were upturned lips, a rounded quote-unquote baby face, almond-shaped eyes, and a cleft in the head. That was a big part of the Olmec's history and a lot of their features, so I wanted to try to make sure I could recreate those. So a lot of what I'm doing here is just building it up, trying to make sure everything's correct. I've also got this tool out now. At this point, my hands weren't carving enough that I could, so I took one of my old clay tools and I carved out bits of like the nose, and then I used this tool to carve around the eyes, and I'm scooping here so I can put this next strip of clay to kind of get those almond eyes in and the cleft of the head. A lot of this is just details that I'm trying to go over. I shortened the ears, trying to get that more square effect that the piece had going on. Again, building a lot more relief. I'm trying to get that baby face that I've talked about before, that rounded cheeks that moved down into the face, into the ears, into the eyes. And then I'm adding a little bit more clay here. I'm trying to round it out for the eyes, that almond shape. This is where I'm going to add the crests. As we saw in the original piece, it had some pretty heavy eye crests, and so I'm trying to recreate that here and smoothing it out. It's similar to the carving that they were doing, again in more of a modern day fashion, trying to understand just how they did that and how they got all these details in such a fine manner. The other thing is, this is about the size that the masks actually were. I wanted to make sure that they were the palm-sized masks that were found. And so I did a rough measurement before I started to make sure that these were about the couple inches that it was shown. And I am currently carving out the top of the face. It's a very cut off. It's the only part that isn't super round, so I tried to make that as jagged as it is in the original image. And then I'm fixing a lot of the back to make sure it attaches. Something interesting about the Olmec style mask is they did not carve out the back. They did not mess with that jadeite as much as we may have thought. So a lot of those masks were pretty flat in the back, and so I tried to keep that here as much as I wanted to carve it out. And I'm going in here and I'm going and trying to carve out all those little holes that we can see in the original mask. So there's some in the ears, there's some in the mouth, there's some in the eyes, the nose, obviously. And what's interesting is not all of those holes are completely carved out. So I carved all those. I gave a couple of the indents that are in that mask, and here we go. Here was my finished product on the recreation of the Olmec style mask. I definitely think it could have been closer, but I think I got pretty close for using modern day mediums. And here is a secondary view of that. I had a lot of fun recreating this project, and I hope that this was interesting.